Welcome to week 3 of my weekly comic review series, where my goal is to go over a few comics for the week and see if it's worth the time and money. This week is going to be another DC takeover with 3 more titles to cover. So, let's get started. Following the success of the Batman and Superman animated series, Batman Beyond debuted with much success. A lot of its success stems from the creator's goal to not make the characters and settings Batman 2.0. The series ran for 3 years, or 3 seasons, which is really good for a spin-off show, and it even was put into comic canon by Grant Morrison. Though, thanks to the reboot, that might not still be the case. With one 2-part story in the last season, probably originally slated for the series finale, which opened up an even bigger stage for the Beyond world. The story focused around the Justice League of the world and even brought Superman back into the fold. The story was great, and it proved just how much Terry had grown since the start of the series. Fast forward to 2010, and we get to see a re-emergence of the Batman Beyond world in comic book form. Now, there were 2 series of comics before this one that ran in 1999 to 2000, but those were more or less show adaptations. Volume 3 is the first comic series that is a continuation of the show and not the show itself. The series was rather entertaining. It brought some familiar faces back and it expanded some of the known characters and villains, which is pretty much what the show did. It brought Dick Grayson into the Batman world, but it really just felt that Terry was just a side character to everything going on around him. The series did so well that it warranted a 4th series, and this one took a bit of a different turn. The story was great, and it furthered the mythos of the world, but it probably could have been told without Terry, and there would have been little change. The 4th volume did very well, and the fans demanded more. While not part of the 52 deal at DC, it was one of the launch titles of the group. Basically, Batman Beyond got its 5th series entitled Batman Beyond Unlimited. The book is a little different than your typical comic series. It contains 3, sometimes 4 different stories in the book, sort of like an annual. We get a Batman Beyond story, a Justice League Unlimited story, a Superman Beyond story, and sometimes an origin story of one of the Justice League members. The series is not in DC canon, but in DCAU canon, in the animated series, meaning what happened in the animated series Justice League is the history for this book. The book thus far has done exceedingly well. The stories and characters have all been very entertaining, and it has sold well enough to warrant a standalone Justice League Beyond series in the near future. The current issue, number 5 of the series, however, is a little weird. We ended issue 4 with the completion of a Mad Stan story, and moving on to the ever-growing Joker Gang problems. Issue 5 doesn't feature Batman at all, really. It is a story about an upcoming villain or hero, won't spoil who, and how he played a role in the Batman Beyond world. The Justice League story is a bit disappointing as well. We ended issue 5 on a cliffhanger involving New Genesis and Apocalypse, and it isn't continued in this issue. Instead, we just get part 2 of the story involving Warhawk's origin, basically telling how John Stewart and Shira from the animated series got back together. The only thing worthwhile in the book is the Superman story, but that is always rather short, so it takes forever for anything to happen. The entire series has been well worth the read, especially for fans of the show. However, if number 5 is the first issue you picked up, please don't judge the series based on this issue alone. Pick up some of the back issues, especially number 4, and see if that doesn't help things. Green Lantern Corps is the second post-52 Green Lantern book that I have covered, and this one also doesn't disappoint. The series focuses more on the Corps themselves, while having John Stewart and Guy Gardner as the main leads. The book itself has been very entertaining as a whole. It seems to be a theme in the post-52 era to bring in more backstory and rivals to their books than before. After the events of the War of the Green Lanterns, everyone is on edge. Nobody really trusts the Guardians, with good reason, and the actions of the Alpha Lanterns has created even more unrest within the Corps. Not a lot of time is wasted until another one of the Guardians' mistakes from the past comes back to bite them. Lanterns are being killed, and Guy and John form an attack force to deal with this problem. The initial attack didn't go over very well, and at the cost of even more lanterns, a retreat was issued. Half the force was saved, but half didn't make it out, including John. In his mind, John was forced to make a harsh choice by killing a fellow lantern. He and the rest of the lanterns were ultimately saved by Guy and a band of special lanterns. Guy then implored something of an unusual means during the process to take care of the threat. Issue 10 kicks off by continuing the aftermath of the event where John has to face judgment for what he has done. It doesn't help matters that John ended up killing a lantern during the War of the Green Lanterns series either. Out of the 3 primary Lantern books, this one is probably the weakest, but it isn't a bad book if you can pick up all 3. The last book that I'm going to go over this week is Nightwing number 10. Nightwing, or should I say Dick Grayson, is a character that has really been mistreated for the longest of times. Don't get me wrong, I grew up with Tim Drake as Robin, and in my book, he was the best Robin thus far. However, I did enjoy the Nightwing character when there was actually some good writing for him. I don't know the fans or DC itself, but he really isn't liked by someone. During the events of the horrible Battle for Bloodhaven event a few years back, it was planned to actually kill Dick Grayson, unceremoniously I might add. Thankfully, that was scrapped, but that was just the start of a roller coaster ride for him. When Bruce Wayne was supposedly killed during Final Crisis, the Bat books pretty much came to a halt while the fate of the Batman character was being decided. After a completely pointless miniseries called Battle for the Cowl, against Bruce's wish, decided to put on the cowl. While this put a stop to the Nightwing character, I was actually okay with it. It was aggression, and I rather enjoyed that. Together with Damian as the new Robin, Dick found himself in something of a unique situation. Only was this the first time he really had a quote-unquote sidekick to train and look after, but it was something of a role reversement as well, what with Damian actually being a lot like Bruce. However, I enjoyed Dick's run as Batman. It gave new life to the Batman character. It was entertaining to read how difficult it was for Dick, who is more flashy overall, having to adjust to the Batman persona. And then came the New 52, and everything changed back to how it was, and with no explanations as to why to boot. While he wasn't Batman anymore, Nightwing returned, and with it some interesting stories that adds new elements to Dick Grayson's past along with his heritage as well. The writing, though, has been subpar at best. It seems to follow a simple story progression of everything moving rather slowly until the end, and then it speeds up. Ultimately, the first 6 issues are all set up to what is going to happen to the character moving forward. Dick is the owner of Haley Circus, the circus he was in growing up, and not everyone is too happy with this. Issue 8 is when the Night of the Owl event starts to invade the series, and we get even more surprises about Dick's past. This carries the series into the current issue, number 10, when the Owl's mess is sort of over and a new cult enters the fray. I am fine with Dick's past conflicting with his present. What I don't like is all this heritage stuff that they are throwing at the character. It seems like it is comic law to make sure all characters have a past that warrants why they are fated to be something more than normal. While I am a little interested to see where things go after everything that happens in issue number 10, I can't say that this is a must-buy series. There is a lot worse out there, but this just isn't necessarily worth the money. Not only does it sort of ruin the character's premise a little, but thanks to the reboot, it is just more of the same. That will do it for this week. Please check out the previous week's video if you want to know more about the reboot or my thoughts on it. As always, thanks for watching, and God bless.